I'm a crime scene photographer. After documenting that murder, I destroyed every camera I owned. The call came at 2:14 a.m. Homicide, gang-related industrial district near the waterfront. I grabbed my gear and drove through empty streets to the scene. Been doing this job for 9 years. Photographed hundreds of crime scenes, murders, suicides, accidents. You develop a professional detachment. Focus on the technical aspects. Lighting, angles, evidence documentation. Don't think about the person who died. Think about the photos. Make them clear, comprehensive, usable in court. That's the job. I arrived at a warehouse loading dock. Police had taped off the area. Detective Samuel Ortega met me at the perimeter. Victim is male, mid-20s, multiple gunshot wounds, gang tattoos visible. Looks like a drug deal gone bad. Standard scenario in this neighborhood. I signed in, suited up, grabbed my cameras. Canon 5D Mark IV for detailed shots. Wide-angle lens for context. Macro for close-ups. Checked my lighting equipment. External flash, reflectors, color correction cards. Everything professional, everything documented according to protocol. The victim lay face down in a pool of blood near a dumpster. I started with establishing shots. Wide angles showing the entire scene, the warehouse, the loading dock, the body's position relative to landmarks. Moved closer for medium shots. The victim's clothing, visible wounds, surrounding evidence. Shell casings scattered around him. 9mm brass. I photographed each casing with a measurement scale. Moved to close-ups. The entry wounds in his back. 3 shots. Tight grouping. Professional shooting. Not the wild spray you'd expect from panicked gang members. I photographed his hands. No defensive wounds. No gunshot residue visible. Photographed his face. Young, maybe 24. Terror frozen in his expression. I'd seen that look before. People who knew they were about to die. I took detail shots of everything. Blood spatter patterns on the concrete. Drag marks suggesting the body had been moved slightly. Scuff marks on his shoes. Gang tattoos on his forearms and neck. Every detail documented with clinical precision. Detective Ortega stood nearby, taking notes. Get good shots of those tattoos. We'll use them for identification. I photographed the tattoos from multiple angles. Then I noticed something strange. The victim wore a silver chain around his neck with a pendant. I photographed it. Small cross with an inscription too small to read without magnification. I'd zoom in later during processing, continued documenting. The victim's pockets had been turned out, empty, wallet missing, phone missing, staged robbery maybe. I photographed the empty pockets, the positioning of his hands, everything. Spent an hour at the scene, took over 300 photos, every angle, every detail, every piece of evidence. When I finished, I packed my gear and drove back to the police station lab. It was 4 a.m. I downloaded the photos to my secure workstation. Started reviewing them chronologically. This was when I did my real work. Examining every image for details the investigators might have missed. Potential evidence hidden in shadows or backgrounds. I scrolled through the establishing shots. Warehouse exterior, loading dock, surrounding area, everything normal. Then I reached the medium shots of the body. Something caught my eye in one image. I zoomed in. There was a boot print in blood near the victim's head. Distinct tread pattern. I'd photographed it without really seeing it at the scene. I enhanced the image. Military-style tactical boot. Police issue. Not unusual. Officers had walked through the scene before I arrived, but this print was under some of the blood spatter, meaning someone with police boots had been there when the victim was still bleeding, before the scene was secured. I flagged the image and continued reviewing. More photos, the shell casings. I examined each one carefully. 9mm brass, standard. But something was off. I zoomed into the head stamp markings. Federal premium law enforcement ammunition. Not the cheap stuff street criminals used. This was professional grade, police issue. My stomach tightened slightly. Could mean the victim had stolen a police weapon, or it could mean something else. I continued through the photos, close-ups of the entry wounds. I examined the wound patterns carefully. 3 shots, tight grouping in the victim's back, upper torso, heart and lung area. Kill shots. Whoever fired had training, professional marksmanship. The angle was wrong too. I pulled up my notes about the body position and the location of the shell casings. The casings were scattered to the left of the body, but if the shooter had been standing where the casings fell, the angle of entry would be different. I reconstructed the scene mentally. The casings were planted, placed there after the shooting. Someone had tried to make it look like the shooter stood in a different position. I zoomed in on the blood spatter patterns on the concrete. Blood tells stories if you know how to read it. This blood told me the victim had been shot while standing, then fell forward. But there was another pattern underneath. Older blood. Different victim, maybe. Or the same victim shot twice in different positions. I enhanced the image further. The underlayer blood showed drag marks. Someone had moved the body, shot him again, then repositioned him. I sat back from my workstation, heart rate increasing. This wasn't a gang shooting. This was staged. Someone had killed this victim, then carefully arranged the scene to look like gang violence. Used police-issue ammunition, wore police-issue boots, had professional marksmanship training. My hands started shaking slightly. I documented hundreds of crime scenes. I knew what gang violence looked like. This wasn't it. This was an execution made to look like gang violence. I needed to be sure. I examined every photo again, looking for anything that confirmed or denied my theory. Found it in a background shot. Wide angle of the loading dock. In the corner, partially hidden behind the dumpster, was a discarded evidence glove. Blue nitrile. Police issue. I enhanced the image. The glove had blood on it. The victim's blood. Someone had worn that glove while handling the body, then carelessly dropped it. I checked the crime scene log. No officers had reported losing a glove. I pulled up the macro shots of the victim's pendant, the small cross with inscription. I enhanced it digitally until I could read the words. To Danny. Love, Mom. Stay safe. This wasn't some hardened gang member. This was someone's son. Someone named Danny. I ran the tattoos through our database. Found a match within minutes. Daniel Reeves, 23 years old. Arrested twice for minor drug possession. No violent crimes. No gang affiliations despite the tattoos. The tattoos had been applied recently, within the last month based on the healing visible in my photos. Someone had tattooed him post-mortem or shortly before death to make him look like a gang member. I felt sick. This was wrong. Completely wrong. I saved all my findings to a secure folder, encrypted it, backed it up to 3 separate drives. Then I called Detective Ortega, got his voicemail. It's Alex Cunningham from Forensics. I need to talk to you about the warehouse homicide. Found some inconsistencies in the photos. Call me back. I hung up. Checked the time. 6:00 a.m. I'd been reviewing photos for 2 hours. Detective Ortega called back 15 minutes later. Alex, what inconsistencies? I explained what I'd found. The police issue ammunition. The tactical boot print under the blood, the planted shell casings, the staged positioning, the recent gang tattoos, the discarded evidence glove. Ortega was quiet for a long moment. You're saying this wasn't a gang shooting? I chose my words carefully. I'm saying the physical evidence doesn't match the scene narrative. Someone with police training and police equipment was present when this victim died. The scene was staged after the fact. Another long pause. I need to see those photos. Can you send them to me? I hesitated. Something felt wrong about his tone. Too controlled. Too careful. I'd rather brief you in person. How about this morning at the station? Ortega agreed. I'll be there at 8. Wait for me in your lab. We hung up. I sat staring at my computer screen, the victim's face in a close-up photo. Young, terrified, dead. Someone had murdered him and tried to cover it up, and my photos proved it. I spent the next hour creating a comprehensive presentation. Annotated photos showing each piece of evidence, timeline reconstruction, written analysis of the inconsistencies. This needed to be ironclad. If I was accusing fellow officers of staging a crime scene, I needed absolute proof. At 7:45 a.m., I heard footsteps in the hallway outside my lab. Multiple people. I looked up as my door opened. Detective Ortega entered, followed by 2 other men I didn't recognize. Both wore suits. Both had that cop look. Hard eyes. Ortega closed the door behind them. Alex, these are Detectives Frank Holloway and Vincent Moore. They're with Internal Affairs. I explained your findings to my lieutenant, and he thought IA should be involved immediately. My relief was immediate. Internal Affairs. If there was police corruption, IA would handle it properly. I stood and shook hands with both detectives. Glad you're here. I've prepared a full briefing on what the photos show. I walked them through everything. Each photo, each inconsistency, each piece of evidence proving the scene was staged. Holloway and Moore took notes, asked good questions, examined the photos carefully on my monitor. When I finished, Holloway leaned back in his chair. "This is very thorough work. You're sure about all of this? The ammunition, the boot print, the glove?" I nodded. "Absolutely. The physical evidence is clear." Moore spoke for the first time. "Have you shared these findings with anyone else?" I shook my head. "Just Detective Ortega on the phone, then you three in person. The files are encrypted on my workstation and backed up to secure drives." Moore exchanged a glance with Holloway. Something passed between them that made my skin crawl. Holloway stood up. "We need to take possession of all the files. Original photos, your analysis, backups, everything. This is now an IA investigation. We'll handle it from here." I stood too. "Of course. I'll copy everything to encrypted drives for you." I turned to my workstation and started the transfer process. Behind me, I heard movement, then Detective Ortega's voice. "I'm sorry, Alex." I turned around. All three men had drawn their weapons, pointing at me. My mind couldn't process it for a moment. "What is this?" Holloway stepped forward. "You've created a problem, a significant problem, and we need to resolve it." My voice came out shakier than I wanted. "You're the ones who killed Daniel Reeves. You staged the scene. The photos prove it." Moore smiled, no warmth. "The photos don't prove anything, because those photos are going to disappear, along with the photographer who took them." I looked at Ortega. "You called them, warned them. You're part of this." Ortega wouldn't meet my eyes. "Danny was a CI, confidential informant. He was about to expose a drug distribution network we've been running. We had no choice." Everything clicked into place. These weren't corrupt cops staging one murder. This was systemic. An entire network of officers dealing drugs, using their positions to protect distribution and killing anyone who threatened to expose them. And I'd just documented evidence that could bring down all of them. Holloway gestured with his gun. "Turn around. Hands behind your back." I didn't move, mind racing, looking for options. 3 armed men between me and the door, no weapon, no way to fight, no way to run. But I had one advantage. I knew this building better than they did. I'd worked here for 9 years, knew every hallway, every exit, every camera blind spot. I just needed a distraction. I turned slowly toward my workstation. "Let me copy the files to drives for you first. You'll want everything." Holloway laughed. "We're not stupid. We'll delete everything after you're gone." I moved my hand toward the keyboard. "At least let me delete the backups." "Make your job easier." My hand hit the panic button hidden under my desk. Silent alarm connected directly to building security. Would bring guards within minutes. Ortega saw my hand movement. "He just triggered an alarm. We need to move now." Holloway cursed and moved forward. I grabbed my heavy camera tripod and swung it hard, connected with Holloway's gun hand. The weapon flew across the room. Moore fired. Shot went wide, hitting my monitor. Glass exploded. I was already moving. Threw my workstation chair at Moore, dove toward the door. Ortega grabbed me. We crashed into the wall. He was bigger, stronger, pressed his gun against my ribs. "Don't make this harder." I drove my elbow into his throat. He gagged, grip loosening. I tore free and ran into the hallway. Behind me, shouting. I ran toward the evidence storage room. Heavy security door, required key card access. I had one on my lanyard. I swiped it while running. Door clicked open. I crashed through, slammed it behind me, locked it from inside. The evidence room was large, rows of metal shelving holding sealed evidence boxes. I ran to the back, found the emergency exit I knew was there. Old fire door. Alarmed, but I didn't care. I hit the crash bar. Alarm screamed. I was outside in the parking lot, early morning sun blinding after the fluorescent lab lighting. I ran to my car, hands shaking so hard I could barely get my keys out. Behind me, the emergency door burst open. Ortega emerged, running toward me. I got my car door open, slid inside, started the engine. Ortega was 10 feet away, raising his gun. I threw the car in reverse. Gunshot. My rear window exploded. I kept reversing, spun the wheel. Shifted to drive, floored it, accelerated out of the parking lot, checked my rear view. Ortega was running back inside. They'd be coming after me. Multiple vehicles, radio coordination. I had minutes at best. I drove hard, no destination in mind. Just away. My phone rang, unknown number. I answered. Alex Cunningham? The voice was unfamiliar, male, calm. This is Captain Gerald Rains. I'm the one who received your panic alarm. Where are you right now? I hesitated. Could I trust anyone in the department? I don't know who I can trust. Captain Rains spoke quickly. 3 detectives just reported you attacked them and fled with evidence. They're saying you're dangerous and armed. I need your side of this, right now. I made a decision, told him everything. The staged crime scene, the evidence in the photos. The 3 detectives pulling guns on me. Ortega admitting they killed Daniel Reeves because he was about to expose their drug operation. Captain Rains listened without interrupting. When I finished, he was quiet for a moment. Where are the photo files now? I explained. Still on my workstation and backup drives in my lab. Encrypted. But they'll delete everything. Rains said something to someone else, muffled, then back to me. I'm sending officers I trust to secure your lab right now. Where are you? I gave him my location, a shopping center parking lot 5 miles from the station. Stay there. I'm coming to get you personally. Don't talk to anyone else. If any officers approach you, call me immediately. Understand? I agreed. Hung up, sat in my car with adrenaline crash setting in, hands shaking violently. What had just happened? 20 minutes ago, I was a crime scene photographer doing my job. Now I was running from corrupt cops who'd tried to kill me. Captain Rains arrived in an unmarked sedan. He was older, maybe 60, gray hair and weathered face. He got out and approached my car carefully, hands visible, no weapon drawn. Alex Cunningham? I nodded. He showed me his badge and ID. I need you to come with me. We're going somewhere safe where we can sort this out. I followed him to his car. Got in the passenger seat. He drove while talking on his phone, giving orders, coordinating. Finally, he hung up. I've secured your lab. No one goes in or out without my authorization. I've also placed Detectives Ortega, Holloway, and Moore on administrative leave pending investigation. They're claiming you attacked them. I'm not believing that story yet. I explained again what the photos showed. Captain Rains listened. I need to see these photos myself. If what you're saying is true, this is bigger than 3 corrupt detectives. This is organized crime using police resources. He drove to a hotel outside the city, got us a room, made calls while I sat trying to process everything. An hour later, another detective arrived, woman in her 40s, sharp eyes. Captain Rains introduced her. This is Lieutenant Irene Cross. She's with the State Police Criminal Investigations Unit. I called her because we need someone completely outside our department. Lieutenant Cross sat down across from me, pulled out a recorder. I need your statement. Everything that happened. Start from the beginning. I walked through it all again. The crime scene, the photos. What I'd found. The meeting with the 3 detectives, their attempt to kill me, my escape. Cross took detailed notes, asked clarifying questions. When I finished, she looked at Captain Rains. If his photos show what he claims, we have a major corruption case. But we need those files before they're destroyed. Rains nodded. I've locked down his lab, but Ortega and the others know what's at stake. They'll try to access it. Cross made calls. Within 2 hours, state police arrived at the police station with a warrant. They seized my workstation, all backup drives, and every piece of equipment in my lab. Brought everything to a secure facility. I was driven there under protection. They set up the equipment in a conference room. Cross, Captain Rains, and 2 FBI agents who'd been brought in watched as I logged into my system and pulled up the photos. I walked them through everything I'd found, each piece of evidence, each inconsistency, the boot print, the ammunition, the glove, the staged positioning, the recent tattoos. By the time I finished, the FBI agents were making calls. One of them, Agent Philip Stevens, turned to me. This is excellent work. Combined with Captain Rains' testimony about what happened in your lab, we have probable cause for a full investigation. Agent Stevens explained the next steps. Full forensic audit of the department, financial records, phone records, surveillance, interviews with other officers. These 3 aren't working alone. Drug distribution networks require multiple people. We'll identify everyone involved. I spent the next 3 days in protective custody. Hotel room with state police guard outside. Couldn't go home, couldn't contact anyone. Just waited while the investigation expanded. Agent Stevens briefed me daily. They'd arrested Detectives Ortega, Holloway, and Moore. All three lawyered up immediately, refused to talk. But the FBI had found others. Financial records showed deposits in multiple officers' accounts. Phone records showed coordination with known drug dealers. Surveillance footage showed meetups at suspicious locations. The network was bigger than I'd imagined. 14 officers total, from patrol cops to sergeants to detectives. They'd been running drugs through the city for 3 years, using their positions to protect dealers, eliminating threats. Daniel Reeves had been a low-level dealer who'd figured out the cops were running the operation. He'd planned to go public, so they'd killed him and staged it as gang violence. The FBI found 2 more staged crime scenes. Other victims who'd threatened to expose the operation. All photographed by me. I documented the scenes without realizing they were murders by the same corrupt officers. My photos from those scenes showed the same patterns. Police issue equipment, professional staging. I reviewed those old photos with Agent Stevens, found the evidence I'd missed the first time, proving all 3 murders were connected. The prosecutors built their case around my photographs. Each image became an exhibit. Each inconsistency became proof of corruption and murder. My professional documentation had created an ironclad case. The trial lasted 6 weeks. I testified for 3 days, walking the jury through every photo, every detail, every piece of evidence proving these officers had committed murder and conspiracy. Defense attorneys tried to discredit me, claimed I'd doctored the photos, claimed I was lying for publicity. But the photos spoke for themselves. Forensic experts confirmed everything I'd found. The jury convicted all 14 officers. Murder, conspiracy, drug distribution, corruption. Sentencing was harsh. Ortega, Holloway, and Moore got life without parole for the murders. The others got sentences ranging from 20 to 40 years. The judge made a statement. These officers betrayed their oaths, corrupted their department, and murdered citizens to protect their criminal enterprise. Their sentences reflect the severity of their crimes and the damage they've done to public trust. I sat in the courtroom and felt nothing. No relief. No satisfaction. Just emptiness. Daniel Reeves was still dead. 2 other victims were still dead. I'd done my job correctly, documented everything with professional precision, and it had nearly gotten me killed. After the trial, I tried to return to work. Captain Rains had been appointed interim chief. He'd offered me my job back with commendation. I showed up my first day, walked into my lab. Everything had been cleaned and repaired. New workstation, new monitors, everything state-of-the-art. A homicide call came in within an hour. I grabbed my gear, drove to the scene, walked up to the crime scene tape, saw the victim. Male, 30s, multiple stab wounds. I raised my camera, looked through the viewfinder, framed the shot. My hands started shaking, vision blurring, panic attack, full-blown. I lowered the camera, couldn't breathe, couldn't think, just terror. The photos had nearly gotten me killed. The photos had revealed corruption so deep I'd had to run for my life. The photos were evidence of murder and conspiracy and evil. I couldn't take another photo, couldn't document another death, couldn't look through that lens again. I walked away from the scene, got in my car, drove home, called Captain Rains. I can't do it. I'm sorry. I can't take crime scene photos anymore. He understood, didn't try to convince me otherwise. I resigned effective immediately. 9 years of career ended because I'd done my job too well. I went home, gathered every camera I owned. Professional equipment worth thousands of dollars. Canon bodies, lenses, lighting, tripods, everything. Loaded it all into my car, drove to a recycling center, threw it all in the industrial crusher, watched the machines destroy everything, lenses shattered, camera bodies crumpled, flash units broken into pieces, all of it gone, destroyed. I couldn't look at a camera without seeing those 3 guns pointed at me, without remembering Ortega's voice saying they were going to kill me, without seeing Daniel Reeves' terrified face in my photographs. The equipment that had been my professional life, my craft, my identity, was now just rubble. I drove home empty-handed and spent the next week in my apartment trying to figure out who I was if I wasn't a crime scene photographer anymore. The nightmares started. every night. Dreams of taking photos and discovering corruption in every image. Dreams of running from armed men. Dreams of victims speaking to me through my camera lens. I started therapy, PTSD diagnosis, occupational trauma. The therapist explained that I'd experienced multiple traumas: near-death experience, betrayal by authorities, moral injury from discovering systemic evil. Recovery was slow. Some days I couldn't get out of bed. Some days I felt almost normal. I avoided cameras completely. Saw people taking photos on their phones and felt sick, applied for jobs, anything not involving photography. Ended up in IT support for an insurance company. Desk job, boring, safe. Everything I'd never wanted but all I could handle. My coworkers didn't know my background. Didn't know I'd been a crime scene photographer who'd exposed 14 corrupt cops. I was just Alex from IT who fixed computers. Better that way. Less complicated. I stayed in touch with Captain Rains. He'd been made permanent chief, working to rebuild trust in the department. He called every few months to check on me. "You did something important, Alex. Your work brought down a criminal network, saved lives. That matters." I appreciated his words, but they didn't heal the damage. Didn't give me back my career. Didn't stop the nightmares. 2 years after the trial, I received a letter from Daniel Reeves's mother. She'd tracked me down somehow, wanted to thank me, said my photos had given her justice for her son, said knowing the truth helped her grieve, said I was a hero. I read the letter 3 times, cried for an hour. I wasn't a hero. I was just a photographer who'd documented a crime scene and spotted inconsistencies, who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time, who'd nearly died for doing his job correctly. But maybe that mattered. Maybe that's what heroes were. People who did the right thing when it cost them everything. I kept the letter. Only memento from my old life I could look at without panic. 3 years later, I saw a crime scene while driving home. Police cars, tape, photographers documenting the scene. I slowed down, watched them work, felt that familiar pull, the desire to document, to preserve truth, to make sure evidence wasn't lost. But my hands started shaking, vision tunneling, panic rising. I drove past, went home, sat in my apartment, thought about who I used to be. Crime scene photographer, professional, skilled, proud of my work. Now I was IT support, photographer with no cameras, professional with no profession. 5 years after destroying my equipment, I still couldn't hold a camera without remembering those guns pointed at me. Still couldn't look at crime scene photos without seeing Daniel Reeves's face. Still couldn't pursue the career I'd trained for because one case had destroyed my ability to do the work. The corrupt officers were in prison. Justice had been served. But I was still broken, still unable to return to the mountains, still living with the consequences of doing the right thing. The cost of exposing corruption is higher than anyone tells you. Not just the immediate danger, not just the trial and testimony. The real cost is living afterward with the knowledge that your professional skills, your identity, everything you built your life around, can be destroyed in moments by people who see truth as threat. I documented that murder, did my job with precision and skill, found evidence that brought down 14 criminals, and lost everything that mattered to me in the process. 5 years later, I work IT support and avoid cameras and live with permanent damage from one case where I saw too much and survived to tell about it. Thanks for watching till the end. Make sure to subscribe and like to not miss the next story.